I learned how to do that without a dime a day. She died with the same amount of money as when she became ill. So I put together a lot of this, and again, to bring this full circle, her mind was sharp as a tack. She would call and remind me of things. But physically, she was correct. So it's all about quality of life. It's all about quality of life from the day you're born till the day you die. It's not about all the money. It's not about all the stuff. It's about quality of life. So what I'm going to talk about today will hit every age group in here, because everything I'm talking about will at some point in your life most likely either affect you or someone close to you. The last book that I wrote is all of this stuff plus some. When I speak on this topic, it's usually an hour and a half. So I've tried to bring it down to 30 minutes as quick as I can. So with that, let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about, because you don't know, even though the things that offer a greater potential for return also have a greater degree of risk, you don't know if a year from now the market's going to go down, you need that money and it's too bad. Only take the amount of risk you need to accomplish your goals. Here's what I mean by that. If you were already retired and you had the amount of money you needed to live on, why do you need to invest aggressively? Just to have more when you could lose it? Figure out what is the amount of risk you need to take for the greatest chance to accomplish your goals, and don't go any higher than that risk. General rule of thumb for the amount of income you can expect from a properly diversified portfolio and have the money last for the rest of your life. So here's what I'm talking about. You figured it all out, and you knew your pension is going to be this, your Social Security is going to be this. But if you put those two together, you're short so much a month, and you're trying to figure out what lump sum of money do you have the day you stop working to make up that difference. This percentage changes over time, and right now it's 2 to 3%. So if you take about 2.5% of the assets you've built, not your cash reserves, not your emergency money, but your other assets that you're going to live on, take about 2.5% of that. That's how much you can expect to take off of that money every single year and have the money not run out before you do. Next. You've all heard this, but make sure, no matter how small your estate, no matter how big your estate, it doesn't matter. You should always make sure you have a will, trust if appropriate. You may or may not need a trust. Power of attorney and healthcare powers, and you'd see, of course, an estate planning attorney for that. My first goal for you. When I sat with clients, I used to say, I don't care about your kids. I don't care about anybody else. What I care about is that you have the money you need to live the way you want to live for whatever years you've got left on this earth. That's number one goal. Number two goal. If you have enough money to have number one, and you have some left over, and we can use that money to preserve what you spent your life building up so you don't lose it all to taxes, long-term care, or anything else, then I want it all. But if the cost of number two is going to cut into number one, and you're not going to have a good life because we're so worried about what we're leaving for everybody else, then maybe we forget about number two. So it's all about knowing what your priorities are and making sure you're covered. I think that passed. Did that pass? Maybe. Did that skip something, Rachel? There's one for that one. I don't know how. You don't know how. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, go ahead. Next. Okay, let's go on to a completely different subject. Making great memories, low-cost ways to pass on great memories to your heirs. And what I'm telling you here, I've actually done. So if you want more information on it, just let me know. Go ahead. As we get older, and you can probably relate to this, it's really hard to find something meaningful to give as a gift. something meaningful to give as a gift. Usually by the time our parents are older, or hopefully by the time we're even older, if we would have wanted it, we would have had it by now. And what the heck can they give us that's going to put tears in our eyes and really make it cool? I did this for my mother when she turned 80, and until the day she died, she still talked about it. And it costs almost nothing, so it's really cool. So here's what you do. I purchased fancy paper. You can go to any craft store. So it's fancy on one side, white on the other side. I cut it into small strips. I put it in envelopes and mailed it to every family member, every friend, anyone she knew throughout her life that I could find, with a note telling them to write on each slip one memory they had of my mother and sign their name. I gave them a return address, self-address, return address with a stamp on it, so I'd be more apt to get them back. I said, put them all back, here's the date I need it by. I got over 100 slips back from all over the country. I went and bought a mahogany box, and I had a gold metal plate made that says, "Our memories of you," and put it on the box. And for her 80th birthday, she opened it up, and tears were in her eyes. People talked about, people she went to elementary school with, family members she hadn't seen in 40 years. I remember when we were kids, and this is what happened, and it was amazing. After she read them all, she kept that box, because it was a gorgeous mahogany and gold box, on her coffee table, and the day she died, it was still sitting on her coffee table. When she got older and couldn't see anymore, she was legally blind, considered legally blind, I took all those slips, I read them out loud into an MP3 player. I got her a set of headsets where she could turn the speaker up really loud, and anytime she wanted to remember what they said, she could put the headset on and listen to what everybody said. That's just really cool. And what does it cost? What does it cost? Almost nothing. Really nice. Video history. Here's another thing. This is really cool too. So my mother was kind of a ham. She taught dance lessons, and she loved to be on stage and all of that. So this was right up her alley. I realized that, and if you think about it, our seniors have an awful lot of history in their heads and memories in their heads that unless we ask them and sit down and give them the opportunity to talk, it dies with them, and we never know. Do you know, when I did this with my mother, I found out something that blew me away. If you drive down Bank Street, New London, a couple of buildings to the left of the Buckley House, if you look at the top of the building on the same side of the street as the Buckley House, it says Hollanderski engraved in stone. That was my maiden name. That was my family. How many times have I been down Bank Street? Who looks up at the top of the... And that's how I found out. And I said, no. She said, yeah, it's still there. Got my car, drove down, I'll be darned, it's still there. I never would have known. She could have died, I never would have known. So how do you get all this information out? So here's what I did. I wrote 100 questions. They're in the book. And I printed them off on the computer and gave them to her in big print. I said, I want you to pick about 8 to 10 and answer them. Write out your answers and then give it back to me. So after she gave it back to me, I put her answers in the computer in big print as well. I printed off only her questions and her answers, gave her the papers for her to study for a couple of weeks so she could remember what it was she wanted to say about those things. And I'll give you some ideas of what the questions were. And then I hired a videographer. You could probably do this yourself, but I hired a videographer like you would for a wedding. And we had her hair done, her nails done, had her makeup professionally done. We figured out where's the best place for her to sit. She wanted everything behind her to be equal. Couldn't have 2 pictures of my brother and one of my sister. So I had to make sure we had everything all the way it was supposed to be, and everything was great. Then when the videographer came, I sat down and I read her the question, and I prompted her as to what her answer was going to be. And that got her going, and she talked and talked and talked and talked and talked. When it was all over, I sat with the videographer. We completely got me out of the video completely. You never hear me, you never see me. You only hear her talk about how did she meet my father, how did he propose to her, How did she find out, and what was it like when she first heard she was pregnant? What was their honeymoon like? What was her childhood like? And I learned what a horrible childhood she had. I mean, really bad, really bad. Between illnesses and being abused and just really terrible childhood, which really gave me some insight as to why she was the way she was now, and made me be okay with it a little bit more, because everybody's got their issues, but all kinds of questions. So let's look at some of the questions. So our seniors do have a lifetime of history to share. Once they're gone, their knowledge and wisdom is gone forever, and that includes you. Learn from them now and pass on your family history and all the wisdom and memories. It's a memory you'll cherish forever. Once I finished this, I made copies for every family member I could find. And for the holidays in December, they each got a copy of the video. Go ahead. So these are some of the questions. Or some of the factors first, then the questions. Be aware of the visual behind. It might be the time they want to get all dressed up, or maybe you just want them to look natural like they always do. Maybe that's what they want. Ask them the questions in advance and give them a chance to really study it so they can come out the best as possible and they know what they want to say and they know what questions they're going to answer. Keep it upbeat, but keep it real. Even though she talked about her horrible childhood, she also talked about how, I remember one thing she talked about was when her mother spanked her one time, put her over her knee, and she says, are you going to do this again? And she said, yes. So she got a spanking. She said, are you going to do this again? She said, yes. So she got a spanking. She says, don't you know you're supposed to say no? Okay, no. And then she said, she better get up. So even though it wasn't good, we still learned about all kinds of stuff. So here's some of the questions. Tell me, what is your happiest childhood memory? Tell me about your parents and your siblings. Tell me about your first kiss. Who was your first love? How did you meet Dad? What attracted you to him? How did Dad propose to you? How did you choose your children's names? I would love to know where my name came from. What gift did you cherish the most? And all the gifts you were given in your life, what do you think it was? That memory box. That's what she said. And this was like 3 or 4 years after I had given her that box. She said that was the best gift in her entire life she could ever remember getting. Isn't that cool? There's a complete list of about 150 questions in the book. So go ahead. But you got it, the gist of what you want to know. Next, joy of giving back. So again, another subject, joy of giving back. What do you enjoy doing? What would you like to try? And how can you make a difference in the world? These are just some of the simple things that you could do. Tutor a child or adults, help a senior program, daycare for single working parents, animal volunteer programs, be on the Southeastern Connecticut Women's Network. I thought I'd plug that one in. Okay, go ahead. Or something else. Let me show you some of the things that we've done. The one on the left, that's me and my mother. I belonged to Seroptimus for over 30 years. And about 25 years ago, I think it was, I put together a clown group. I sew, so I made all the costumes, bought all the makeup, and we were in parades, and we went to nursing homes. All different nursing homes once a month, and I learned how to make balloon animals and that kind of stuff, and we just entertained at nursing homes to help people feel great. Habitat for Humanity, that was me. They had a women's build. I actually got up on a scaffold, hammered nails, helped build a house. Just really cool. Thanks. Now let's talk a little bit about maintaining quality of life as you age. I call it putting yourself on autopilot. I put this program together probably 25 years ago, and I've been speaking on it and speaking to all my clients about it for over 25 years. And what it is, it's all the things you can do while your mind is sharp to put all your ducks in a row to enable you to maintain your independence as long as possible. And that's what everybody wants. They don't want to be a burden on their family. They don't want to be put out of their house. They want to be able to be on their own, making their own decisions as long as possible and having great quality of life. So again, an hour-and-a-half presentation in 30 minutes, but this will give you some of it. So it means that things will run on their own in the way you need them to, with little or no input on your part at all. It'll just happen automatically, so you don't have to have your hands on it. First thing you really need to do is simplify, simplify, simplify. As time passes, we accumulate stuff. We were told we need to diversify our assets, so we've got 1 million different accounts. And you do need to diversify, but that doesn't mean you have to have accounts at 50 million different places with statements coming in from all of them, with tax reporting from all of them. You can consolidate and have them reported on a couple of statements without selling them instead of having them spread out all over the place. And there's a lot of things you can do to keep your hands out of things so that they happen automatically. So here's some. Too many financial relationships. Again, think about consolidating what you've got. If every time you saw a higher interest CD at the bank, you may have a bank account at all different banks, pull them all together, you only need one bank account, or one bank, or maybe one bank, one credit union, but you do not need 50 million different accounts. Same thing with brokerage accounts, dividend reinvestment plans, and financial advisors. You don't need tons of that. Clean up small accounts. If you had a stock and it had a spin-off and now you've got a little bit of this and a little bit of that, wait till you're 80, 90 years old trying to deal with all that stuff. While you can, clean it all up. Direct payment of bills. Now with technology, it's so easy. I'll tell you what we did with my mother, and actually part of this was her idea, which was really neat. I had to take over managing all her money because she became blind and couldn't see to do it. So, and I was still running my business. I was working like 80 hours a week. I was a single parent part of the time. And how the heck do you manage it all? So I didn't want to have to write out checks for everything. She had about 12 different doctors, about 13 different medications, and bills everywhere. So we set up automatic pay for most everything that we could. And then her idea worked really well. She was extremely frugal, and money meant a lot to her. I said, what we're going to do then is have it paid automatically. She says, well, I think a lot of those will allow us to have them go on my credit card, and then I'll get points. So I said, okay, that works. So I contacted her credit card company, and every bill we could got paid automatically on her credit card. I managed her credit card, and I had her credit card once a month pull the full balance out of her checking account. So now all I had to do was monitor her checking account, make sure there was going to be enough money to cover her bills, and about every 3 months, I dumped money into it because I had an idea about how much that was going to be. So she got her points, and in December every year for the holidays, she used her points to buy everybody gifts. And remember I told you her care was $15,000 a month? She had a lot of points. Not that all that went on a credit card, but she got a lot of points. Quarterly estimated federal and state income tax. If you have a paycheck, if you have Social Security, if you have a pension, I do not like people having to pay quarterly estimated taxes if there's a way around it. And so here's what I'm talking about. And I'll give you an example, because one client didn't like it until she understood it. She used to get about $200 a month from this one little pension, plus all her other income, but one little pension. And she had to send federal and state quarterly taxes of about $600. So I said to her, we're going to contact your pension and have 100% of it go to federal and state, so you no longer have to file quarterly. And she said, I'm not going to do that. I need that money. I need that $200 a month. I said, no, you don't. You're getting it, and 2 months later, you give it back. So you're really not spending it. Let's just not have it go through your hands. Let it go directly from them to IRS. Now, 4 times a year, you don't have to remember how much you have to write out for a check, where do you send it, and how much is postage. And it happens automatically, because if you forget one, there's all kinds of penalties, and it's not worth it. And if you can set this stuff up while your mind can handle it, when you get older and you can't anymore, it's going to all happen automatically, and you're not going to have to worry about it. Your tax advisor can help you calculate what to tell any of those companies as far as what withholding to do. Cost basis. Cost basis is not a real issue going forward, but for anyone that has mutual funds or stocks in the past, knowing your cost basis is critical. Cost basis, here's what cost basis is. Let's say you bought a mutual fund years ago for $2,000, You reinvested all the dividends and capital gains, and that was another $1,000. But if you sold it today, instead of it being worth $3,000, it's worth $5,000. And the reason it might be worth $5,000 is the price per share went up over time, so you sell it for a higher amount. If you sold that investment today for $5,000, you have to prove to IRS how much you don't pay tax on. So we know the $2,000 you put in you won't pay tax on, but if it wasn't in a qualified plan, every time a dividend or capital gains was paid to you, you claimed it on your taxes that year and you already paid tax on it. So you have to be able to prove what your cost basis is for all your stock and all your mutual funds that are not in retirement plans. And here's the nightmare of it all. My father died at the age of 50, and then about 10 years later, my mother remarried. She married a guy that was the vice president of one of the largest banks in New York, and he thought he knew everything about everything to do with money until he got Alzheimer's. And they lived out of state, and I had to manage him and all of his stuff. But I finally went down there, closed them out, and moved them up here, and took over managing all his money. I had to sell some of that to get my mother a place to live. How the heck do I know what the cost basis is? You couldn't even go by the date on the stock certificate, because he got so bad that he wasn't trusting anyone, and he closed all of his brokerage accounts, and he was carrying the certificates around in a suitcase. So they all had the same date on them. So we didn't know when he bought them. And when you don't have an account there anymore, getting information from a place you don't have an account with anymore, really, and me getting it, not even him getting it, and I'm not his daughter, I mean, that was just the royal nightmare. You've got to have cost basis. The reason why I say it's not a big deal going forward is now companies are required to keep cost basis for you, but up until a couple of years ago, they were never required to keep it. It was your job. And all of that money is still your job. So get your cost basis. Your tax person should be able to help you with that, or your financial advisor. Credit cards and charge cards, I already talked about that. Consolidate them. You don't need 10 million. You need 1 or 2 in case of an emergency. That's really all you need. Next. Medical information. We're going to talk about a couple of apps that also help with technology. There's an app called CareZone. And I know going forward with all the new changes to the laws, even the way your doctor deals with you now is different. They usually take notes right on their computer. They give you a printout before they leave. But think about it. When I would go with my mother, how many times, every single time you go to the doctor, and every time she went to the doctor, they would say, what medication is she on? You know, what's happened since her last... How can you be 80, 90 years old and remember all that stuff? I couldn't remember all that stuff. So when I went with her, I brought my laptop and I typed as they spoke and I kept track. By the time she passed, I had 800 and something pages of notes. But now you can take the CareZone app, it's free, and you take a picture of your pill bottle and it stores it in there. And it says the name of your doctor, how many more refills you have, what your prescription number is, what the medication is, what the dose is. And then all you have to do is remember to change it if you get your pills changed. And when you go to the doctor, show them your phone. Home sweet home, today, tomorrow, and. So some of the things you can do for your house, home inventory, this applies to everyone. Everybody knows they're supposed to keep track of the contents of their home in case you ever needed to file a claim, if you had a fire, theft, or whatever. I tend to harp on this a little more because I needed mine twice. We built a brand new house, a very expensive brand new house in Orange, Connecticut, and 6 months after we built it, it burst into flames. They built it wrong. We were all in the house at the time. And I'll tell you, when there were ashes sitting on the floor, the insurance company comes in. How can you prove if it was a cardboard box, because we just moved in, or a $1,000 painting that used to be your grandmother's? How do you prove it? Second time it happened, I was in a condo in Ledger, left in the morning, came home about 7 at night. While I was gone, the hose on the back of the washing machine broke. Condo was on cement. When I opened the front door, the water was 4 feet high. Opened the door, it knocked me over and went all down the street. We had a cat was sitting up on like the 8th step all day long waiting to come down. And I'll tell you, when things have been floating for 10 hours, how do you prove what they were? You need records and pictures. And most people don't do it because they think it's a pain in the neck. Here's the easiest way to do it. And now it's with technology, it's even easier. Get a video camera or a video of some kind. If you don't have one, borrow one, rent one. You only need it for a day. Before you start, take all your valuables off, your jewelry off, take your collectibles out, set them out on a table. Start outside your front door and say, today's date is, this is the home of, and put your address. As you walk in, start talking about everything. The main reason people don't do this is they don't want to sit down and try to remember and write it all out. Most of us don't mind talking. So if you have the video and you say, front door, this is the painting Grandma so-and-so gave us, here's who it's signed by, we estimate that she brought it over from Italy in 18 whatever, and here's what we think the value is. When you then go to each thing, when you get to the televisions and stereos, pull them out and video the model number and serial number. If you ever have a theft, or if you have a fire and they melt to the ground, you show the video to the police if there was a theft, and they know exactly which one you had. Odds are you won't have to replace this video or do it all over again unless you move, because if you change your television out, just go to the back of the video, say today's date is, model number such and such is no more, here's the new one, and put it away. The video is no good if you keep it in your house. Because if your house burns to the ground or your house floods, there goes your proof. And did you know that a fireproof safe doesn't mean what's in it won't disintegrate? All fireproof safes have a rating on them, and you have to really watch for that. All that means is the flames can't get in. It doesn't mean it won't get so hot that if you had money in there, valuable papers in there, when you open that safe, they're going to be all ashes. So you have to get a fireproof safe that has a rating on it of how many hours and at what temperature it can stand that heat for anything in it to be any good. So you have to watch for that. Okay. So make changes now to make it more comfortable. Security system, boy, how many times does the power go out in Butler? Do you know my power went out 3 times this morning? Just this morning. And so we finally put in an automatic generator. It kicks in automatically within 3 minutes of the power going out. It kicks back out within 3 minutes of the power coming on. It does my entire house. Our house, the finished area is 300 square feet or something. It does the whole house, washer, dryer, refrigerator, all the technology, everything, for 2 weeks. The controls for it, I asked them to do special controls. I didn't want to go out to the unit to watch it. We have a control sitting next to the bed on the nightstand that tells us how much gas is left in the tanks, whether the machine works, whether it needs service, all that stuff. It's right there, and I have an app on my phone that warns me if it has any issues. Security system, we also do that because I travel a lot. I'm gone all the time. I think I've been on 14 or 15 trips this year already. I'll be away this weekend, next weekend, and 2 weeks ago I was in Portugal. So I'm away all the time. So automatic security system connected to the police department, fire department. I hope that's not what your house looks like. I'll tell you, when I had to move my mother's and her husband out of New Jersey, they lived in an apartment, so I thought this was going to be easy. He was in a 2-bedroom apartment in a building with all other apartments. It took me 4 months going there every weekend from Friday to Monday and doing nothing else but eat, sleep, and take care of their stuff. He collected everything. And when a garage opened up, he rented it. It was like 2 blocks away, so you'd have to go walk to it. It was a double garage. Every time somebody threw away a dresser, he pulled it into the garage. He had it lined on 3 sides. He had another set on top of those, and another set on top of those, and then he had planks at the top with stuff all stuck up there, and the basement that was supposed to be storage for the entire building, only he had it because he took up the entire basement. Now, here's the biggest issue and how you should relate to this. First of all, don't do that to your kids, and don't let your parents do it to you. So you have to help them. Because the other thing is, I wasn't even his daughter, and now I'm going through all his stuff, trying to decide what would be important to him to keep, what is valuable that we should sell, because he was a collector. I mean, a big collector. I have marble statues in my house and all kinds of stuff from him. He was a real collector. And how do I know what the value of any of this stuff is to pay to help take care of him? And what would be important to him? So when we moved him up here, we had to put him in a nursing home because his mind was pretty gone by then. But I want him surrounded by things that meant something to him, that were important, that would make him feel at home. How the heck do I know? Does anybody know for you? While you're the one making the decision, you need to fix this, get rid of the junk, and make sure it's real clear what stuff needs to stay and what's important to you that you can pass on. Go ahead. And I'll try to run this through this quick. Other safety issues, things you can think about, like putting in a ramp. When I sold my practice in 2007, we also sold our house. We built a new one. I live about 10 minutes from here on Governor's Landing. We built a new one. We designed it ourselves. It's all on one floor. Try to think of everything while I was looking after my mother as to what issues we might have so that 20, 30 years from now, we could still stay in that house. It's set up so we could put in a ramp if we wanted, but we're all on one floor. There's grab bars just about everywhere, but if you walked in our house, you wouldn't even know. It doesn't look like it. Appliances. I looked everywhere to find a stove where the knobs are on the front, because most of them are on the back. And the reason why they're on the back is so small children won't get at them. We have no small children. Now, it's more of a problem. There are more seniors getting burnt and serious problems because they have to reach over a hot burner to be able to turn the knobs off. So all our knobs are on the front. All our faucets are levers, not knobs. So as we get older, if arthritis is an issue, we'll be all set. And extra thick padding under the carpet, so if you fall, you just have to get hurt. Do it now, while you can. If you wait till you need it, it's too late, because you won't be able to do it. You just won't be able to deal with it. And as we get older, we get more set in our minds, and it's really hard to give stuff up. It's hard to change what we're doing, and if it's hard now, every year it's going to get worse. So you need to deal with it now, or help your family deal with it now, so that you don't have to deal with it when they're gone, when they need help. Go ahead. A couple of quick more things. Taking calculated risk for a better life. That is 100% me. I've done all kinds of weird, strange, cool stuff. I'll show you a couple. But I'd rather die having fun than sit home worrying about it. I'm just not going to worry about it. I'm going to do what I want, when I want, and I'm going to have a good time. My husband is 75 years old. I get him to do all kinds of stuff. I'll show you something I got him to do just last weekend. He was a nervous wreck, didn't want to do it. After he did it, I always say, are you glad I pushed you? Do you wish I leave you alone? He's always glad I pushed him, so I'm going to keep pushing. So, think about what excites you, what you always wanted to do and haven't done yet. What fear would you like to overcome? Who should you make up with? Who do you want to get together with? I got together with a woman a couple of years ago I hadn't seen in 40 years. I flew to Seattle where she lives, saw her first time in 40 years. I spent a couple of days with her. It was the neatest thing. And what's on your bucket list? Every time I cross something off, which I do it all the time, I keep thinking, once the list is done, do I die? I think I have to add another item. So the last time I crossed something off, what I added was, they told us that she had just ate it. If we wanted to get out and lay down in bed, we could. So I did. That's me and the chicken. Go ahead. When my daughter laid down with him, he licked her arm. I have a picture of him licking her arm. Next. She said to me, Mom, there's something I've always wanted to do. We can only do it in South Africa. Would you do it with me? I said, sure, I'll do anything. I didn't know this was it. We flew to Cape Town, where they filmed Shark Week. That's me in the cage, and that's the shark that I took a picture of. Next. Get others to step out of their comfort zone. My granddaughter and I in the water with a beluga whale. My husband scared to death on the darn Segway. The granddaughter embarrassed anyone would see her. And the grandson said, I don't want to do that. And I knew they'd have a hard time with it, so I said, don't make any plans. Friday, we're going somewhere, and I'm not telling you what we're doing. When we got there, I got them out of the car, parked way down the other end, got them out of the car, locked the doors. Walked them over and showed them. They said, Segways? This is in Mystic. They said, Segways? I said, yeah, you're doing Segways. I don't want to do Segways. I said, well, here's the rule. They're going to give you 20-minute training in the parking lot. If you have to do this training, you have no choice. After 20 minutes, if you really don't like it, you really don't want to do it, I'm not going to force you to do this. After 20 minutes, they loved it. We were 2 hours all over the Mystic Bridge, all through downtown Mystic, through the water and everything. They loved it. And it's something they'll remember forever. Next. This we did last Saturday. I told my husband the other day, I told him about a year ago, I said, it's time again. You have a choice. We will learn how to fly a helicopter, we will learn how to fly a plane, or we're going to drive real race cars. Which do you want to do? He said, I'll drive the race cars. Last Saturday, we drove to New Hampshire, and we were actually in, you can go ahead, Richard Petty race cars. We each were in our own car and drove on the track that NASCAR is driving on this weekend. That's us in the cars. That's me on the bottom, that's him on the top. He was scared to death. The last minute he says, I don't think I'm going to do this. I'll let them drive and I'll just sit. And I said, whatever you want. Last minute he said, I guess I'll try it. He loved it. He loved it. Next, you got to push people. You got to get out of your comfort zone. You've got to make life what it can be. Swimming with my youngest daughter with dolphins, and then making traditions. What traditions do you have? I'll wrap this up. What traditions do you have with your family that they're going to remember forever? I've watched my grandkids twice a week and 4 weeks in the summer for the last 20 years. And for 15 years, every October, I had them make gingerbread houses, but we did Halloween gingerbread houses, so it would stand out and be different than what they were used to. I would have them go out in the yard, we'd collect leaves to put down, and they decorated these and made them themselves, and of course I took tons of pictures, I scrapbooked everything, and I have albums for them, and when they get older and they're on their own, they will get all of their albums. Next. Step out of your comfort zone. At the spur of the moment, I decided I wanted to go to Israel. I went with 5 people I never met. I was there for 2 weeks. After they left, I stayed by myself for 3 days and lived with an Israeli family so I could learn the culture, and then I came back. And while I was there, riding on a camel. Charity auctions we do all the time, and it's a great way for business. Not only can you donate things for charity, but I've gotten all kinds of cool stuff. I still have a package at home for advertising in the Norwich Bulletin. I think I paid $650 for it. It's $4,500 worth of advertising, and all the money went to charity. When we did the African safari, all went to charity. And every single person, because when we were in the Jeeps, I would ask, people were coming from all over the world, and I would ask them, how did they get this? Every single one of them came from charity. That was the only way this safari advertises, is through charities, and all the money goes to charity. So your plan for success? When you're at the end of your life looking back, think about this. How do you feel about the life you led, what you accomplished, and how you treated others? If at the end of your life you can feel good about those 3 things, you've had a wonderful life. No matter what else happened, you've had a wonderful life. If you can't feel good about those 3 things, you better do something about it now. Because you can't control what happened in the past, but today is the first day of the rest of your life, and you can control what happens from now till the day you die. My mother was still going to shows, she was still doing things at 89 up until a week before she passed. So you got to step out of your comfort zone, you got to push yourself and make a difference. What to do now? Determine what's important to you and get rid of the rest of the stuff, if you can. Simplify, declutter, and organize your home and your business. Set up your home and finances for the long term. Don't think about tomorrow. Think about 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now. Give back and make memories. And make every day count. Life's a journey. You make it what you want it to be. You're the only one that can do that. Nobody can take that control away from you unless you let them. Thank you.